us a sustainable tenancy, when we are working with housing clients and talking about exactly what that looks like, we are talking about one that can be maintained successfully by that tenant resident throughout the life of that tenancy. The preparation for ensuring that tenancy can be sustainable, starts right from when an application is made and those pre-tenancy checks take place. A successful tenancy isn't simply someone who is paying their rent on time every month. That can actually cover a myriad of issues that might be happening behind that front door. We know that there are tenants in social homes who, in order to pay their rent, are actually borrowing from family members and friends to make ends meet. They might be selling items within their home. They might be pulling back on buying food and energy to ensure that they're making their rent payments. And that to us is not what a sustainable tenancy is. That is a very, I think, siloed way of thinking that simply making rent payments is a sign of someone in a successful tenancy, a tenant who can sustain their tenancy in a warm home that is well maintained, without the stress of where that rent money is coming from. That is what a sustainable tenancy means to us, and I'm sure it does to the wider sector. I know it does. Specifically, when we bring payments into this kind of conversation, which is where PayPoint come in, it's really about removing obstacles to paying and making the process of paying rent as simple and convenient as possible, as to not put people off of that process or abandon a payment mid-transaction. This is most likely the largest payment a tenant is going to be making that month. I don't want to make it any more difficult than that has to be. It's a large amount of money that we're parting with. So for us, it's about making that process really, really simple, adding channels that are reflective of how people are making payments in other areas of their lives. Open banking payments is a really good example of this. And it's also about, all the wraparound services, that we can provide around payments too. Things like, fuel and grocery vouchers, support with school clothing, and we can all offer that within our solution, within our platform.
It's about making things easy for the tenant. If they want it to be easy, you need to give them all sorts of choices. It's how they interact basically with the housing association is really key. And more often than not, the first kind of interaction that a person will have or a tenant will have with that housing association might be the repair operative that actually comes out to see them, because everything else is being maybe done remotely. So making sure that experience up to where that engineer arrives to begin with is seamless is so important, because if you can offer up maybe things such as allowing a customer come in to book their own appointment, that's fantastic. That speeds up the process, and more importantly, the tenant feels great. This is easy to do rather than having to sit on the phone. Yeah, absolutely. There's always these tenants who will want to actually use the phone to actually talk to someone. That's fine. The housing associations have those channels too. But the journey towards getting that engineer there, if you excuse the pun, is really key. How you think about that and offer up all sorts of different ways in which you can do that.
That sort of opens up responsive repairs. We're sort of discussing there, because we know that we have many discussions with many providers that as soon as something goes wrong and is not responded to in a certain amount of time, that is when the sustainable side of a tenancy becomes at risk.
Helping customers or tenants themselves diagnose those faults to begin with. So as part of that initial kind of like help desk, maybe online, or maybe even an app where they're going in and actually trying to log a call, they'll be walked through almost like some fault diagnosis. And by doing that, that's giving the housing association a lot of clues about what most likely is going wrong there. So even before the engineer is sent out, to actually get to fix that problem, more often than not, if they're using that kind of technology, guess what? They're going to get there. They're going to know what the problem is, more likely than not, and be able to fix it on that first visit. What FLS is about is offering up appointments. So be it a tenant through an online portal, or be it an agent in the housing association giving those appointments out, it's about offering up those appointments. And again, they can be time constrained. So you might want to give them a 2-hour window, a 4-hour window. And they may be booking that job maybe 3 or 4 days in advance. So part of what we're doing, as well as offering up those appointments, is sending out little reminder texts or emails to actually remind the tenant, look, this is when this engineer is coming, when the call is actually logged. But hey, why not even send that information out to them maybe the night before or the morning of the appointment, and give them a link, if the actual housing association allows, to let them track that engineer to see where they are on their journey to them. We're trying all the time to offer up these cost optimized appointments to the housing association or to the tenant. So we're trying to guide them towards the least cost one. So again, it's going to be convenient not just for the customer or the resident, should I say, but also more importantly for the actual company that's actually using the solution as well, because it's about making sure the engineers are traveling less. That's what it's all about. Coupled with that, I mean, you mentioned their plan maintenance. Say, for instance, a reactive job comes in, and actually, the planners can actually see that there's a plan maintenance job there already. The system will automatically gravitate and actually maybe try and think about pulling that job forward, or suggest actually, well, actually, let's get that plan maintenance job done at maybe the similar time. Or it might be a responsive job, and we can see that it's not an urgent job, so why not do that at the same time you're going to do the plan maintenance job, which is already planned in for maybe next week. So again, it's about just giving that visibility to the operators and also the tenants, that actually you can actually book these jobs really, really efficiently.
Providers giving flexibility to tenants and giving them more choice, allowing them to do it in a way that they allows them to self-serve really effectively and efficiently. I think there are some tools that perhaps don't allow them to do that in the best way. It's about allowing them to do it in a really effective way. And I think with the open banking piece, like I said, we can have it white label, you can have it embedded with APIs, but it allows customers to adopt a technology that is very simple for them to use. You'll see it put as pay by bank, and naturally people will start to adopt it because they would have seen it in other areas of their lives, even if they're perhaps not familiar with the terminology, or they maybe don't think of it as open banking. They'll remember that they use that in a different app. And we know that technology moves faster in other sectors, and I think to offer something that's really reflective of a modern payment where the likes of Ryanair and Uber have it, or Just Eat have it in their app, then I think that's a huge step forward for the sector as a whole in terms of adopting really new technology early. But yeah, like you say, we'll see a reduction of calls coming into the contact center because we're allowing people to do more themselves, which is really important.